every thought we know comes from an underlying belief. So you've got to stop believing in those old patterns. You, the one who created that thought and belief, who's invested your belief in it, must divest your belief from it. You've got to do it. Who else can do it but you? You're the only creator. You're the only reality. Your mind is a void in which only you abide. No one else can do it for you. You've got to tell the ego what you don't believe anymore, right? You're seeing yourself in a way that creation does not see you. Deep down in your innermost being, you know you're the creator. So the first idea I want to put forward to you about requalifying thought. What really is requalifying? What do we mean when we say that? I'm going to give you 3 analogies that will point to sort of the 3 biggest challenges of this practice. When we begin doing this practice, number 1, there's a challenge of overcoming the overwhelm. Let's put it that way. Overcoming the overwhelm of a negative thought pattern that's vibrating through the subconscious that has a ton of emotional energy behind it. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's fear and anxiety. But when you meet that thing, when it gets triggered and it comes up, and you say, okay, I got it, now's my time to requalify this. The first challenge that we typically bump up against is, well, gosh, this just feels impossible. This feels like rolling a 3-ton boulder uphill or something. Like, this emotion is too charged. I don't feel like I have the power to stand up against it. And when we do try to requalify, because there's such an enormous amount of energy in that pattern that we've given it for so many years, decades usually, it feels like we're not even making progress, right? So overcoming the sense of overwhelm is the first challenge of requalifying. The second challenge is the fact that it takes some time to see progress. Not in every case, but in most cases, especially for those really deeply embedded thought patterns and beliefs, it will feel like it's taking longer than you want it to take to see change. We're going to talk about why that is, and I'm going to give you an analogy to understand why that is. And then the third kind of challenge of requalifying is that you are the only power which can requalify. And because we're so used to and accustomed to thinking like a victim, because when we're living from ego consciousness, which all of us have been our whole life, it's just our natural default mode to see ourselves as a victim to things. And we overlook the cause-effect relationship of our thoughts. But every single thought has creative power, and every single thought you give life to begins to circulate through your mind. And if every time it arises out of the subconscious and into the conscious, you give it more attention by resisting it or believing in it or whatever you might do that further qualifies it to the negative. How do we requalify that pattern? Well, you've got to first realize that you're the only one who can do it. And just realizing that simple fact of I am the creator, there is no other power here that can requalify a thought, allows you to step into a new dimension of empowerment, because you realize there's nothing you're fighting against, yeah? There is no great enemy that's making you think things you don't want to think, and you've got to somehow defeat this great foe in your mind that keeps thinking negative thoughts. You say, no, it was all my doing. I am the one who has continually given this thought and belief my power. I've believed in it. I've supercharged it for decades and decades. And so behold my power as this incredibly potent thought surfaces and the emotional body explodes with anger or fear or whatever. This is my power I'm experiencing. That's quite a requalification, isn't it? So let's get into it. So the first analogy I want to give you is about overcoming the overwhelm of being in the trigger. You know, we've talked about how the only opportunity you have, the only real opportunity you have to requalify something is when it comes up. When it acts through you, that's the opportune moment. I've used the whack-a-mole analogy, right? It doesn't do you any good to whack a hole when the mole hasn't come out yet. If you're playing that game, you got to wait patiently for the mole to come out and then strike as fast as possible. Because when a thought, well, let's back up. We have thoughts, beliefs, and patterns. And really it would go belief, thought, pattern. We do not requalify our feelings. I hope we've been clear about that. We do not requalify feelings. Why? Because feelings are perfect. Feelings are our guidance system that's simply communicating data to us. So we don't want to try to get rid of or requalify our data center, our feedback device, right? We want to just listen to it and respond accordingly. So we're never in any kind of battle with our feelings. We're never trying to change our feelings at all. What we're trying to change is our beliefs, our thoughts, and our behavior patterns. So every thought, we know, comes from an underlying belief. And gosh, guys, I'm feeling a little bit forgetful today. Can somebody remind me how many beliefs the ego has in the chat? Oh, that's right, 3. So that makes it easy, right? There's just 3 beliefs the ego has and none others. The belief in lack, the belief in attachment or external fulfillment, and the belief in control, personal doership. I act separately from the universe. Those are the only 3 beliefs the ego has. So just as we do in our Catalyst Journal workshops, we need to get to the core of the belief, yes, but there are also thoughts that arise from those beliefs, myriad thoughts, infinite different thoughts. The ego can create different varieties of lack-based thinking forever and ever and ever. Infinite potential to think about lack, infinite potential to be attached, infinite potential to take control. So those thoughts are helpful to notice and to trace them back to their root. But ultimately, a thought pattern comes from a belief. So let's just say we have beliefs, thoughts, and behavior patterns. You may even notice yourself in the middle of an egoic behavior, being reactive, getting upset at somebody for something they say, having a addiction or a craving act itself out through you, shrinking back and feeling small, diminishing your sense of self, on and on and on and on. Patterns are the way that the ego acts out its belief system through the body. So we also want to notice those and requalify them. Any one of those 3, requalifying any one of those 3 will be a net positive for all 3 because they're all linked. You will never act out something you don't believe or think about. Impossible that you could. You only act out what you believe is true and what you think. But nevertheless, we can look at those 3 modalities, yeah? Beliefs, thoughts, and actions. So how do we overcome this overwhelm of the emotional overwhelm of when we're in a trigger, in a pattern, when a belief system comes up that's very powerful? I want to give you this analogy. Imagine that you're sitting next to 2 speakers. And remember, this is the predicament we're all in when we begin the practice of requalifying through our I am power. It's as if we're sitting next to 2 large speakers, one on the left, one on the right. The speaker on the left plays death metal at an extremely loud volume. And this speaker turns on at totally random times. You never know when it's going to turn on, but when it does, it absolutely shocks the system. You cover your ears and you're just trying to make it through the overwhelming sound waves of this really intense, awful music. And so that's what it's like when we're trying to requalify our thoughts, is that they come out of nowhere. They arise in the flow of life, unbeknownst to us, based on whatever arises. We can't predict it. We just have to be ready to be present for it when it comes up, right? So here's the predicament, is that you can only turn down the volume knob when the music starts playing. And by the way, the speaker on the right plays beautiful classical music that opens the heart and serenades you and feels wonderful, but it's on silent as of now. This is what it feels like at the beginning of the practice of requalifying. The negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, habits are extremely potent, extremely loud, and they overwhelm the senses. So we feel like, gosh, how am I going to requalify this monstrous pattern, this monstrous belief system? And the only way you can is when it actually turns on. So you picture yourself kind of like plugging one ear and trying to turn the knob down while you're just bearing this incredible onslaught of sound waves. But then the other predicament you're in is that the knob you turn is very insensitive, unlike most knobs today. The knob on my soundboard here that I'm using for this mic, I could just turn it a fraction of a degree and you're going to hear me go silent. It's very, very sensitive, right? A little movement subdues the volume significantly. This speaker, which represents your negatively qualified patterns, is the opposite. It's very insensitive. You got to turn it a full 360 degrees to even lower that volume a tenth of a decibel. You know, so you're over here like trying to crank it down, and it's just blasting through your body, blasting your eardrums. You're overwhelmed, and you're trying to requalify. You're not even sure if it's doing any good. You can't even notice if the volume's really turning down or not. How many of you can relate to that? How many of you have felt like that? Certainly the way I've felt when I began this practice. And at the same time, you've got to try to turn up the knob on this side, but then the music will turn off and then your time is done. You know, you just had that short window of a couple minutes when that pattern arose and got triggered. So what we're saying here is you've got to take full advantage of these opportunities. It's only in the moment of a trigger, of a thought, a belief, a pattern arising, that you have a real opportunity to requalify it. Because it's the mole coming out of the hole, right? What was in the subconscious peeks up into the conscious, and it's connected all the way down from the tree of the roots of mind all the way down to the underlying belief. That's the foundation of it, that's causing it. So we can't shrink back and feel overwhelmed and just plug our ears and hope it goes away soon, because it doesn't requalify. We have to be willing and able to meet that pattern when it arises, even in the midst of the overwhelm. So it may feel very challenging to sit with these overwhelming emotions that come up when we're triggered in a pattern, but make no mistake, every time you turn that knob, here's the positive end now. Every time you turn that knob while the music is blasting, the knob becomes slightly more sensitive, we might say. And so here's the extrapolation of this analogy, is that the more you use your I am power, the stronger it becomes. Just like any other practice, right? The more you lift those weights and you keep increasing the weights, the stronger your muscles get. So the more you use your I am power, the more effective your requalifying will be. Does that make sense? So it's just the fact that we haven't actually activated our I am power. We haven't spent much time in our life living and acting from the I am state. We've been acting from the ego state, the state of separation. So we've qualified ego to be very, very powerful. And so, like I said, we can notice how much power the ego seems to have and say, wow, behold my creative power. Look how real I've made this false entity feel and appear. Look how real this imaginary friend has become that I've made up in my mind. I must be very powerful if it can appear to be this real. That's another way of requalifying. You know, when we requalify, we've said requalifying is basically two steps ultimately. It's the positive use of denial. You, the one who created that thought and belief, who's invested your belief in it, must divest your belief from it. How else can you do that other than the positive use of denial? You, the creator, who said for 20, 30 years, I'm not good enough, I'll never be good enough. You created that belief by affirming it, yeah? So you've got to say, I deny all belief in unworthiness. You've got to do it. Who else can do it but you? You're the only creator. You're the only reality. Your mind is a void in which only you abide. No one else can do it for you. So you've got to stop believing in those old patterns. Even if they feel real, even if they feel overwhelming, it doesn't matter. The fact that our negative thoughts and beliefs feel emotionally painful is what the ego uses as evidence for their false reality, right? The ego says, you see how much this hurts when you think about it? That's the proof that it's true. That's the proof that it's real. Whenever you think, I'm rejected, you know how depressing it feels? See, the depression is the evidence that it's true. That's the narrative, right, that ego feeds us. So you have to know, no, my emotions are never speaking to my circumstances. They're never telling me what to do or not to do, what's happening in the present moment. They don't even see what's happening in the present moment. My emotions only respond to my self-perception. They only react to how I see myself. So if I see myself as being rejected, well, in reality doesn't know me as rejected. Reality created me. Reality sustains me. I am awake and aware in reality itself right now. I am reality itself, appearing in this form. So if I believe I am rejected, I am unloved, reality doesn't know that. It doesn't compute with the universal mind. And so our emotional guidance system goes, false perception. To see yourself as rejected, not good enough, unworthy of love, is a false point of view that reality does not have about you, right? You're seeing yourself in a way that creation does not see you. So you are violating natural law in that way. So your emotional guidance system has to clue you in. Hey, danger, warning, you're straying away from reality. So we're never requalifying our emotions, and our emotions are never evidence of the ego's beliefs. In fact, they're evidence that they're not true, right? Because what feels bad isn't true and can't be true. What is true alone feels good, feels fulfilling, feels enlivening to our soul. Truth and reality feels joyful and abundant and happy because reality is infinite. Reality is without limitation. Reality has no contraction. Reality has no division. So there's no possible reason to be unhappy in reality itself. So if we feel unhappy, we can say, thank you, sadness, for smacking me awake from this dream of unworthiness and lack. And we requalify. I denounce and deny all belief that I'm lacking love. That's the first act of requalifying. This is not a ritualistic discipline you just go through the motions and hope it works. This is not a magic wand you wave. Okay, Aaron told me this formula, so let me just do the positive use of denial and the affirmation of truth. Okay, did it work? I think it worked. You're way off already. It is a living experience of connecting to the truth. It is stepping into your power and exacting your power as the creator. So what I mean is, something in you must feel that what you're saying is true. You have to have some conviction behind what you're saying, right? You can't say it like a poor beggar on the street corner. Please, sir, a petty coin. Please, ego, just help me out a little bit here. I don't believe this. Can you please get rid of it? Ego's gonna go, not a chance, buddy. You've got to tell the ego what you don't believe anymore. You've got to tell that charged negative thought system that you do not have agreement with it anymore. So something in you must rise up when you deny the belief or the thought or the pattern, when you denounce and revoke your belief from it. You've got to feel that. Here's what it is. You've got to feel that you at least want it to be denied. Do you know what I mean? Even if it feels as if all your heart and soul believes that you're unworthy of love. Everyone I've ever dated has broken up with me. My mother left me. My father left me. Even if it seems to be true, can you just find the part of you that wants it to not be true? I hope you guys are listening. I'm giving you the gems here. If you can't access any part of you that knows it's not true, if you have not encountered God enough to know that I am infinitely loved beyond imagination, so I denounce all belief that I'm unworthy of love. If you can't access that, you're still not out of luck, because you can at least access the part of you that doesn't want to believe it anymore. That's sick and tired of it, right? I always use the breakup analogy just because it works so well. A woman who's in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser, that's you and the ego, right? She will always go crawling back to the abuser until she gains a certain level of power from getting sick and tired of the pain and the suffering, right? So what is it? She has to get angry at the abuser. Something in her has to shift, right? And yes, anger is still a negatively polarized energy, but it's a less negatively polarized energy than victimhood, shame, self-devaluation. That's the lowest rung on the totem pole. So we actually are stepping up our vibration when we get sort of angry or fed up with old limiting thought systems. And what is the ultimate part of you that's getting angry? It's because deep down in your innermost being, you know you're the creator. You know that you have the power, and you're living like a pauper rather than a king or a queen. The famous quote, "We fear our light far more than our darkness," stands absolutely true. We fear that we actually are a being of infinite power, and yet we're squandering it to become a beggar on the street. You know, that's almost a worse fear than the belief in unworthiness. I also use the analogy of being locked in a jail cell, and you're just rotting away, starving away in the jail cell, and all the while, underneath your food bowl, there was taped the key to leave the prison cell. And after 30, 40 years, you notice the key there, and your body starts shaking, and you start entering this state of denial. No, it can't be true. There was a key all along? I could have escaped 40 years ago? That's what it's like initially when we learn about our true power. It's like, holy shit, I've been causing myself this self-inflicted torment for 20, 30 years, and all along I've had the power to requalify those thoughts and get rid of them. Ouch. It just hits different, doesn't it? But you've got to get over that and say, nonetheless, I do have the power, so it's time to start using it. That's what we're doing when we bring the positive use of denial. This is a teaching from A Course in Miracles, the positive use of denial, meaning I'm not denying this because it's some huge enemy I'm trying to defeat. I'm denying it because it's not true. Not true. That's it. It's just not the way reality is. And so I deny it. Why? Because I want to stay in reality. So we don't deny as if we're going to fight some big bully at school. I'm going to finally stand up to you and stop letting you pick on me and take my lunch money. That's not what we're doing to the ego's beliefs, you guys. We're going, what a fool I was to believe you existed. I renounce your false reality in my mind. I revoke all the power I've given you. Again, you're the only power. Who's going to do it if you don't do it? So positive use of denial, first step, followed by affirmation of truth. In the place of the lie we've been believing and feeding, we now tell the mind what we want to replace it with by feeding our mind, fixating our attention on the truth. Any truth, whatever you want. You're the creator. You choose the truth you want to affirm. Any truth in the universe, but it has to be true. So that's why I say, I give you guys mantras, right? I give you guys affirmations as a helpful starting place, but you can come up with your own for anything you want. You can use whatever statement resonates through your being as true. I just give you guys the ones that I use and that work for me. But you've got to deny your old belief in that thought, and you've got to affirm what you know is true instead. That's requalifying. Every time we do that, we're turning that knob down a little bit more. And as we exercise our I am power by doing that, no, I will not give any more free passes to this thought that torments me and takes away my peace. I renounce all belief in unworthiness of love, and I affirm I am love itself. Within me is an eternal wellspring of the Father's love. I am never lacking love in any moment or in any situation. That's my truth. And you bring some of that intensity to it. Bring some emotion to it, because that's where the charge is, right? Without the feeling, it's like a battery with no power in it, right? You can plug it in, but it's not going to do anything. So you've got to want it to not be true. That's why you've been stuck in that belief pattern for so long. Because at the end of the day, part of you enjoyed being a victim. Didn't it? I sure did. I see it now. I didn't see it then, but I sure loved my depressing, sad stories. No one suffered as bad as me. I was rejected by all my friends and family. When I left the church, I lost everything. I got divorced. Oh, poor me. No one knows my pain. That was my identity until I got sick and freaking tired of it and said, I don't want you anymore. I don't believe in you anymore. You don't exist to me anymore. You're an old illusion. You're an old delusion, an old nightmare I once had that has no substance at all. I affirm I am loved. I am one with God. I am abundant with friendships and relationships. You got to just start affirming what you want to be true. What you feed your mental energy upon grows, right? So the positive use of denial is to take the victim out. Pull the victim out by the roots, right? Don't just cut it down at the level of the soil. Get under that root system and uproot that thing altogether. Positive use of denial. And then after we take the victim out, we put the creator in. We plant the seed of creator consciousness in that place through the affirmation of truth. Every affirmation is a seed you plant. And as Jesus said, the law of sowing and reaping is an eternal law that cannot be broken. Whatever you plant, whatever you sow, will reap a harvest in like manner. A farmer cannot argue with the crops that he yields, right? How much sense would it make if a farmer goes out seeing corn one day and goes, this is all wrong. I planted pumpkin seeds. Hey buddy, no you didn't, because it's corn. Reality itself will tell you what you planted. So all the farmer can do is say, oh shit, I thought I was planting pumpkins. Clearly I planted corn. You see that? That's all we've done with our negative thoughts. I thought I was helping myself by thinking as a victim, but now I see clearly that was a bad seed to sow. So I revoke all belief in it, and I affirm this instead. So that's the two speakers analogy of overcoming the overwhelm. It'll take some time. It's going to be tough, but that's your moment to shine. That's your moment to step into creator consciousness, and nobody else can do it but you. For the sake of time, we'll go to the next one. I could rant and riff about that one much longer, but the second analogy is for the idea of the fact that it takes time to see real progress. Now, if you're really tapped into your mind, if you're really tuned in to your thought energy, it doesn't take time to see progress. You will see it right away. But the very fact that we've qualified our thoughts so negatively means we clearly don't have a lot of awareness of our thought energy. We haven't really connected to it yet. We're not really mindful or paying attention to it yet. And so it will feel like it's taking a lot of time to make progress. So here's the silly analogy I came up for this one. And you'll have to forgive me. These are weird analogies, but they work. And it's hard to put these metaphysical principles into analogies from our 3D world because they kind of defy the laws of our 3D world in many ways on the metaphysical level. But let's suppose requalifying is the following situation. Like the two speakers, you're sitting next to two buckets. You know those 10-gallon buckets that you'll see at construction sites, the big orange ones that hold 10 gallons? Imagine you have a red 10-gallon bucket on the left and a green 10-gallon bucket on the right. The red bucket represents negatively polarized thought energy, and it's filled to the brim. The green bucket represents positively qualified thought energy, and it's completely empty. Now, all you have to move water from this bucket to that bucket is a little coffee straw. And furthermore, if you drink or swallow any of the water while it's in the red bucket, it'll make you sick because it's poisonous water. It harms you if you swallow it and digest it. And of course, that represents believing in the thought, right? If you believe in it at all, even if the tiniest drop gets through, it will have some effect. And we're totally oblivious to just how much we really believe these things, aren't we? So it's like this. We're trying to sip out the water from the red bucket without swallowing any of it and carefully spit it into the green bucket. And we just get a little tiny drop of water at a time. So, each time you're doing this, it doesn't feel like you're making a lot of progress, and the goal feels insurmountable. You're like, this is going to take me forever. But as with our previous analogy of turning down the volume makes the knob more sensitive, you increase in your power the more you use your power, because giving is increasing, right? The more you give your I am power, the more it grows in strength. In the same way, the straw that you use gets slightly larger every time you use it successfully. So over time, the straw is getting bigger, and you can spit larger quantities of water from the red into the green bucket. That represents taking your thought energy, your mental energy that you've given to the ego's beliefs, and revoking it and placing it in the green bucket, the heart chakra, to qualify it positively. It feels like it's going to take a lot of time, and in the beginning, the progress will feel the slowest. But like anything else, the more you use the I am, the stronger it grows, and your effect of requalifying also gains in power and strength. Does that make sense? So this is what it feels like when we're requalifying thoughts. It feels challenging. It feels like an uphill battle. We don't seem to be making much progress at first, and so we can lose heart and give up. But that's because, again, we're just unaware of how much we are always qualifying our thoughts, how much we're entertaining negative thoughts throughout the day, stressing over stupid things, thinking about the past, worrying over what I said or did, guilt, shame, fearing the future, stressing about what might happen, getting angry about what's happening right now that I disagree with, fighting reality. These are normal thought patterns of the human being in third density consciousness. This is how most people live perpetually. And so it's not that you have to start doing something you're not already doing. You've always been qualifying your energy, because all energy in the universe is neutral. It's naturally harmonious when it's left alone. It's a simple vibration that must be qualified in some way. So when you think negatively, you qualify that energy with a negative vibrational pattern, a distorted one that looks like a messed up EKG, right? It's not harmonious. It's not, a pattern of any noticeable kind. Whereas a positively qualified thought is a perfect wavelength, perfect balance, yeah? So that's all we're doing, is requalifying our mental energy. But in the beginning, we're up against the biggest task, right? That the bucket is the most full when I start the practice. So just know that, right? Keep that in mind. And it'll be encouraging to you to say, hey, it's supposed to feel challenging in the beginning because I'm breaking an old pattern. I've been, as a default state, qualifying almost all my thoughts to the negative energy. So it's not going to feel easy right away to break such a huge, constant, repetitious pattern, but I'm the only one who can do it. So let me just start now. Let me just make it a life habit, a new way of being, that any thought that crosses my field of awareness that doesn't bring peace, that brings any level of contraction, I requalify it. I just tune into my emotional guidance system all the time, because I know, as the Course says, I am as God created me. I should always be at peace. I should always feel the happiness of my Father's love. I should always be connected to reality. So if I'm ever not, I've stepped away from truth. I've strayed away somewhere in my thinking. Time to requalify. So we use the I am to do that. Anytime you say the word I, you're invoking the power of the I am. So I renounce all belief in victimhood. I renounce all belief that I've ever been a victim in the past. And I affirm I am the creator. And if you can bring any level of feeling to that, you are requalifying it successfully. The last one I wanted to cover was the fact that you're the only creator. And I kind of hinted at the analogy. The analogy is like a comet in orbit around the sun. So requalifying is like watching a comet that's in orbit around our solar system. and it only passes by every great once in a while, right? Thoughts are a lot like that. They're like comets in space, orbiting from the subconscious back into the conscious. In the same exact way, the universe is fractal, right? It's holographic. It's all the same patterns reappearing. In the same exact way that when we see a comet in the sky, some of them take 75 years to make their orbit, some of them take hundreds of years. How much of that comet's orbit do we actually see from Earth? Earth representing the conscious mind, what I can see in my field of awareness. We see a tiny fraction of that comet's orbit, right? Most of the orbit we don't see. It's in the subconscious, kind of like an iceberg, right? In the same way, that thought that I'm a victim or whatever it is always present and active in your mind, lowering your available energy. It's always taking away your mental energy. It's just that most of the time you don't see it. It's unconscious, right? So only when the comet enters your field of awareness do you have an opportunity to requalify it. So when we see the comet, if we fear it, if we resist it, if we curse it, if we think it's awesome and we agree with it, anything we do that adds energy to it, we know that the next time it comes around, it always reappears with accumulated energy because we gave it permission to enter the subconscious through those kinds of tacit agreements, right? Anger, resistance, trying to control it, anything negative will infuse it with more negativity. So we've got to requalify it to the positive. So instead, we see the thought comet, and we have to realize I'm the only creator in this universe of my mind. My mind is like infinite space. I'm the only being here. So no one and nothing else can requalify this comet and make it leave my orbit, make it leave my mind. I alone can do it. We know that in space, in outer space, momentum and inertia are perpetual, right? Until an outside force acts upon an object. Whatever speed you send a rocket ship into space with, it'll coast at that speed forever until it hits something or something outside of it acts upon it to change its speed, its momentum, its direction, its inertia. Your mind is exactly like that. The thoughts that circulate through your mind will just continue perpetually until you act upon them like that outside force and say, nope, I don't believe you anymore, and you requalify it. There's no other power in your mind that can change your thought patterns but you alone. So then when this comet passes your conscious awareness, if you aren't requalifying them, it looks more terrible each time. The more terrible it looks, the greater it looks each time it comes around, right? The more you believe in it, the greater it grows. The fiery trail of the comet gets wider and more terrible looking. At some point, you've got to realize I'm making the comet go. I am the power by which that comet orbits through my mind. So I alone can requalify it. So that's what it has to feel like within us to realize I'm the only creator here. I am is the only power here. When you see that, you guys, it takes all the weight out of this practice. It deflates the tension you feel about it because you know, oh, great, fantastic. I'm not actually fighting anything. I'm not actually resisting any foe or enemy in my mind. I've built these thoughts and patterns, so I'm just deconstructing them and building the ones that I want in their place. I am becoming the creator. Yeah?
Hey everyone, thank you for watching today's video. I hope that you were truly blessed by it. And I wanted to let you know that I'm really excited to now be partnering with an amazing conscious supplement company called ORGANIFI. A lot of you know that I'm also passionate about holistic health and nutrition, and ORGANIFI has been a staple in my daily health routine for a very long time. They make the most delicious, organic, and high-quality superfood products that I've ever come across. And as you know, a healthy body is a great benefit for spiritual growth because the health of your body directly translates to the health of your mind. Everything is connected. So feeding your body with high vibrational superfoods straight from the earth is one of the best ways to create that environment for a healthy mind. But getting all the superfoods that your body needs in one day can admittedly be a little bit tough. And that is where ORGANIFI can add a ton of value to your life. I personally start every day off with green, which is ORGANIFI's really delicious blend of 11 superfoods like ashwagandha, chlorella, and moringa. And then in the middle of the day, I'll usually have a scoop of red, which is a delicious energy blend full of 13 adaptogens and antioxidants from berries to recharge your mind and body with a delicious blend of organic superfoods. Your body is an amazing organic machine, but it needs the right fuel and signals to function at its best. And red is full of adaptogens sourced from organic herbs and medicinal mushrooms. And these are compounds that balance hormones, prime your energy pathways, and alleviate stress. So instead of crushing your adrenal system with huge doses of caffeine every day, adaptogens work with your body and give you natural, sustained energy all throughout the day. What's most important to me though about ORGANIFI is the way that they go above and beyond to ensure the cleanest and purest ingredients in all of their products. They are USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, certified glyphosate-free, and absolutely zero fillers. So I never go anywhere without ORGANIFI, and I never miss a day without taking it. And ORGANIFI is offering a super generous discount of 20% off of your entire order when you use the coupon code Abke at checkout. So if you want to upgrade your health regimen with ORGANIFI, you can click on the link in the description box below to learn more about all the amazing products that they offer. And I promise you that your mind and your body are going to thank you for it.